Very good afternoon to all of you. Sorry to keep you guys waiting for the last 5 minutes. Let's start now. So, we are back to this pre-connect session again with reference to the questions of polity. And today we are going to start with fundamental rights. In the next 5 sessions, we will see the issues of fundamental rights, DPSPs, fundamental duties, and some associated concepts also. And if you guys wish to have any other section also, just let us know. We will make that particularly. So today let us start with fundamental rights. I hope you guys are aware about the concept of fundamental rights, but before starting with this, I would like to make certain clarities with reference to this whole issue of rights and duties. The basic understanding which we need to have with reference to this whole section is that you may not see much number of questions from this fundamental rights. But if you talk about the concept is very much important. First part. Second part, whenever you talk about this fundamental rights, then it is not only about this article 12 to article 35. You have to understand the concept of 36 to 51 also and fundamental duties also. That is why when we term this whole section, we term it as rights and issues and we do not term it as fundamental rights only. However, the concept of fundamental rights is very simple. It starts from article 12 to article 35. Now, let us see the questions one by one and then we will see some additional concepts which may be asked in this year's examination. Like there have been some news associated with right to be forgotten, right to erase. Again, there have been this issue with reference to right against handcuffing. There have been this issue of defamation. There have been this issue of section 66A of IT Act. So, all these issues needs to be seen from the point of view of this year's prelims examination. Let us see the first question. Which of the following are envisaged by the right against exploitation in the Constitution of India? The point is, when you talk about these fundamental rights, I would like to have a very clear concept associated with this. I may not say this with reference to the other provisions of the Constitution, but when it is about fundamental rights, DPSPs and fundamental duties, you also need to have some sort of clear-cut demarcation in your mind that which article represents which part. So, if it is about article 14, article 17, article 19, article 29, you should be able to differentiate in yourself that which section represents which right. Like we have this right to property, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to freedom of religion, right to certain rights for minorities, and then rights of these constitutional remedies. So, you should be able to differentiate in yourself that which right represents which section. Now, let us see this question, a very simple question. Which of the following are envisaged by the right against exploitation in the Constitution of India? Prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor, abolition of untouchability, protection of the interest of minorities, protection of employment of children in factories and mines. If you see this question, just try to have a view over this. The question is very simple. You just need to have an idea that what are the constituents of this article 12 to article 35 and you will automatically be able to answer this. Now see this. Prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor, abolition of untouchability, protection of the interest of minorities, prohibition of employment of children in factories and mines. If you see these rights, you have to understand very clearly that which among the following are rights against exploitation. Untouchability. Article 17. This is right to equality. Again, protection of the interest of minorities. Article 29 and 30. Prohibition of employment of children in factories. This is something with reference to right against exploitation. Article 24. Prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Article 23. So, it is talking about right against exploitation in the Constitution of India. This is Article 23 and 24. And the answer would be 1 and 4, that is C. So, when you have this idea of which article is related to which right, then only you will be able to answer this. And you will see this type of question on a regular basis. So, when you are reading this, when you are going through this fundamental rights section, you have to understand these articles very clearly because questions are being asked from these articles again and again in examination. Let's see another question. Which one of the following statements is correct? Rights are claims of the state against the citizens. Rights are privileges which are incorporated in the Constitution of India. Rights are claims of the citizens against the state. Rights are privileges of a few citizens against the many. Again, if you see this question, you have to understand this very clearly, that when you talk about this rights and duties, you have to make a differentiation in yourself also, and you have to understand that what are the philosophical aspects of these rights. You don't need to go through various political philosophers associated with these rights and duties, but you have to understand the basic meaning. What is the meaning of these rights in India? Not only this, there can also be a question with reference to these rights, which may come up with this concept of what is this natural rights? What is this legal right? What is this constitutional right? What is this fundamental right? So there can also be a question like this. There can also be this issue of moral rights. So it is not only fundamental rights which we need to see, we have to see this concept of natural rights, legal rights, constitutional rights and moral rights also. What are the provisions in the constitution which assures us these types of rights? And what is the concept of this natural rights? So when you are going through these concepts, try to cover all these dimensions, then only we will be able to have this holistic view of this concept of rights and duties. Let's see this question again. Rights are claims of the state against the citizens. This is the correct answer. We have seen this. The point is, you have to understand the relationship between rights and duties. Do you think that there can be rights without any duties? Do you think that these rights are for the welfare of the citizens of India, or are these rights limited to the citizens only? All these dimensions needs to be understood very clearly. See the next question. In the context of India, which one of the following is the correct relationship between rights and duties? Rights and? Sorry, we have to see this question again. We have done some sort of misinterpretation. If you see this question, which one of the following statements is correct? Rights are claims of the state against the citizens. Rights are privileges which are incorporated in the constitution of a state. Rights are claims of the citizens against the state. This is the answer. C. Rights are claims of the citizen against the state. And this question's answer is A. In the context of India, which one of the following is the correct relationship between rights and duties? Rights are correlative with duties. Now, you have to understand this relationship between rights and duties. Can we have rights without duties? Can we have just duties and no rights? Is it like my right is only my right and I should not respect the rights of others? Do you think my right stops where your nose starts? What is the meaning of this line that my right stops where your nose starts? We have to understand all these concepts, and then only we will be able to understand this relationship between rights and duties. Let's see the next question. Right to privacy is protected as an intrinsic part of right to life and personal liberty. Which one of the following in the Constitution of India correctly and appropriately imply the above statement? Again, you have to understand that you need to know the exact article associated with this. If you don't have the clear-cut idea of exact article, you will not be able to answer this question. What is the meaning of this right to privacy? Do you think right to privacy is a fundamental right? And if it is a fundamental right, in which article of the Constitution we can see this right to privacy as a fundamental right? Because we have seen this question again by UPSC. UPSC has asked it clearly also that right to privacy can be incorporated is a fundamental right under which article of the Constitution. So you have to understand this Article 19 and Article 21 very clearly, and this golden trinity of articles, that is Article 14, Article 19 and Article 21 needs to be understood very clearly. Then only we will have this conceptual clarity with reference to these fundamental rights. Let's come back to this question again. Right to privacy is protected as an intrinsic part of right to life and personal liberty. Which of the following in the Constitution of India correctly and appropriately imply the above statement? Right to life. Article 21. That is, if you talk about this right to privacy, then Article 21 specifies, if you go through this Article 21, it specifies right to life. If you talk about right to life, and additionally it also specifies right to life and personal liberty. Now, if you see this Article 21 of Indian Constitution, automatically this concept will come into existence, that is right to privacy. And this right to privacy has been asked by UPSC again. Like I'll just show you the question. Now, see this type of question. We have been seeing this type of question also in examination. in the recent past, which article of the Constitution of India safeguards one's right to marry the person of one's choice? The point is, whatever issue you are seeing these days, you have to understand that these issues needs to be seen very clearly. These issues in the sense that when you are seeing these issues, Anushtan, actually there was some misplacement with reference to these slides. That is why the answer I marked was A. The answer is C only, dear. Which article of the Constitution of India safeguards one's right to marry the person of one's choice? Article 19, Article 21, Article 25, Article 29. Again, if you see this question, there are certain issues which are there. We have to understand that how are we going to see these issues with reference to the fundamental rights. So, if you talk about right to marry, it will come under article, which article? Right to marry. The point is, they have asked this question here. Let me show you another question. Now, see this question, right to privacy, and try to relate this question of right to privacy to the previous question which we discussed just now. You have to understand these two very clearly, that whatever issue you are seeing, like right to be forgotten, right to erase. Now, if you talk about right to be forgotten, under which article this right to be forgotten can under which article this right to be forgotten can be included? What are the recommendations of various committees with reference to this data protection bill, or what are the provisions in India with reference to personal data protection? Do you think India should follow this provision of right to be forgotten, or do you think it is an absolute right? All the issues associated with this needs to be seen. Now, right to privacy is protected under which article of the Constitution of India? This question and this question, that is, which article of the Constitution of India safeguards one's right to marry the person of one's choice? Article 19, Article 21, Article 25, Article 29. It should be B only, as mentioned by all of you. Answer is B, that is Article 21. And this Article 19 and Article 21 has been interpreted by the judiciary various number of times, and various other provisions have been included as fundamental rights, like right to remain silent is a fundamental right, right to sleep is a fundamental right, right to not join any political party or organization is also a fundamental right, right to form the cooperative societies is also a fundamental right. So, we have to see all these dimensions with reference to Article 19 and Article 21. We have to see that what are the recent changes, what are the recent provisions which have been added under these articles. Then only we will be able to have a clear-cut idea of Article 19 and Article 21 from where questions are being asked in examination. Again, see the question, which one of the following categories of fundamental rights incorporate protection against untouchability as a form of discrimination? Again, you need to understand that unless and until you know clearly that which section represents or which article represents this untouchability, you will not be able to solve this question. So, we have right against exploitation, we have right to freedom, we have right to constitutional remedies, and we have right to equality. Article 14 to Article 18. If you have an idea that this comes under untouchability comes under Article 17, you will automatically be able to understand what will be the answer of this question. Right to equality. Article 14 to Article 18. So, we have been seeing questions on same pattern again and again, and we have to follow this very pattern when we are preparing this section. Automatically every concept will start becoming clear. Automatically every issues will be addressed properly if we follow this very approach. We have seen this right to privacy, that is Article 21, and not only this right to privacy, we have moved a step ahead and we are talking now about right to be forgotten. Now, what are the limitations in this right to be forgotten or right to erasure? Not only this, if you talk about this right to erasure, you also need to understand that is this right to erasure a fundamental right, and if it is a fundamental right, is it applicable every time, or what are the limitations with reference to this right to erasure? Right to forgotten is also known as right to erasure. A very important topic, a very important concept with reference to this year's examination. right to be forgotten. Let's see some more questions. A legislation which confers on the executive or administrative authority an unguided and uncontrolled discretionary power in the matter of application of law violates which one of the following articles of the Constitution of India? Again, you have to understand various provisions of these fundamental rights. What is Article 14 of Indian Constitution? That is what is Article 14 in this fundamental rights: equality before law and equal protection of laws. And if you have the idea of these articles, you will automatically be able to answer it. So whenever you are going through this section, please remember that go through the article very properly. Unless and until you are clear about the articles, you will not be able to solve this section. I don't specify this remembering the articles with reference to the other provisions, but with reference to these fundamental rights, we have to understand these articles very clearly. So it will be Article 14 only. If you are clear with this Article 14, you will automatically be able to answer this question. Article 28, it is with reference to something related to religion. I am not saying to remember exact article, just have a lump sum idea. Article 32, constitutional remedies. Article 44, it is not a fundamental right. Let's see this. What is the position of the right to property in India? Now, if you talk about this right to property, then automatically some other concept associated with this also comes into existence. If you talk about this right to property, then we have to understand this concept of amendability of fundamental rights also. Do you think fundamental rights are amendable? What is the definition of a law under Article 13 of Indian Constitution? How do we define a law under Article 13? How can we amend the fundamental rights? And what is the status of this right to property at this moment? Is it a right mentioned in the Constitution of India, that is legal rights available to citizen only? Is it like legal rights available to any person? Fundamental right available to citizen only? Neither fundamental right nor legal right. What will be the provision associated with this? If you talk about this right to property, then we also need to understand that what are the rights which are available which are available to citizen only. Is it like every right is available to every citizen? Or what about the rights of the foreigners? Is it like fundamental rights are also available to the foreigners? If you talk about right to property, then this right to property was a fundamental right, but through 44th constitutional amendment, it was removed as a fundamental right and became a legal right under Article 300 capital A. And if you talk about this 300 capital A, then it is a legal right which is available to any person. It is not only limited to citizen. It can also be, it is not only limited to citizens. Along with the citizens, it is also given to foreigners. That is, it can be with reference to any person and not only with reference to citizen of India. See, last question. Now, with reference to writs issued by the courts in India, consider the following statements. Mandamus will not lie against a private organization unless it is entrusted with a public duty. Mandamus will not lie against a company even though it may be a government company. Any public-minded person can be a petitioner to move the court to obtain the writ of quo warranto. The point is, statement 1 and statement 2 is contradictory. So, if statement 1 and statement 2 is contradictory, one of them should be incorrect. D cannot be the answer. A cannot be the answer. Either B or C. So, we have to see this question again. See the third statement. Any public-minded person. Now, this is very much clear that this third statement is correct. I am just giving you some trick to solve this question. So, this is very much clear that the third statement is correct. Why I am saying that A and D cannot be the answer? This is mainly because these two statements are contradictory. Mandamus will not lie against a private organization unless it is entrusted with a public duty. Mandamus will not lie against a company even though it may be a government company. These two are making it somewhat contradictory. The point is, we have to understand this Article 32 of Indian Constitution. If you talk about this Article 32, then we have to understand that it gives us this constitutional remedies and writs also. 5 writs, habeas corpus, mandamus and so on. We will see that separately. We will have a separate session for writs also. So we will see that separately. Now we have writs under Article 32. We also have writs under Article 226 of Indian Constitution. We also need to understand the difference between Article 32 and Article 226. What is the difference between these two? Again, if you talk about this Article 32, we have to understand one thing very clearly, that this Article 32 gives us this writs that is going to the Supreme Court directly. Now, when you can go to the Supreme Court directly, then what can be done there needs to be, what are the provisions of this mandamus, that needs to be understood also. And if you see this, then this second statement is incorrect. Mandamus lies, will not lie, mandamus lie against a company if it is a government company or a private individual. It can be with reference to that. And if you see this first statement, mandamus will not lie against a private organization unless it is entrusted with a public duty. So first statement is correct and second statement is incorrect. The answer would be C only. Anushtan, sir, can you please explain the last question? What is the position of right to property in India? See, if you talk about this right to property, dear, if you talk about this right to property, you have to understand certain dimensions associated with this also. Dimensions in the sense that it is not on, this question is not only about right to property. This question along with this right to property is also about this amendment of the Constitution. If right to property was amended and was made a legal right, then we have to understand that it is not only limited to this right to property question. We have to understand that what are the provisions associated with this right to property? What is the constitutional status of this right to property now? Is it a fundamental right or just a legal right? And along with that, we also need to understand that how this was amended. This means that fundamental rights can be amended because this provision came after this a provision of basic structure of the Constitution. So even after basic structure, we saw this amendment. This means that we can have this amendment to the fundamental rights also. Third last, okay. A legislation which confers on the executive or administrative authority an unguided and uncontrolled discretionary power in the matter of application of law violates which one of the following articles of the Constitution of India? Dear, this article, this question is talking about equality before law and equal protection of law. As we know that this equality before law and equal protection of law is not only with reference to executive actions, but it is also with reference to legislative actions. So executive as well as legislative actions both needs to be seen in the with reference to this, and this comes under this right to equality. Clear? Rest of the provisions are not associated with this. If you talk about 32, that is writ petition, this is for people to seek the fundamental rights, and it in itself is a fundamental right. But this provision, a legislation which confers on the executives, it is talking about the legislative functions. So if you talk about Article 14, Article 14 controls this legislative as well as executive actions. Anushtan. Is it clear now? So this is all we have for the day. Tomorrow we will see fundamental duties or DPSPs, any of these. If there is anything, please let me know. Thank you for the patience. Let's meet tomorrow at the same time, that is 1:30. Till then, everybody take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.